It's interesting that you say that, because I think one of the fears for people thinking of starting their own business is not having the perfect product or the perfect service on day one. But it sounds like really the takeaway is start from somewhere, and you can always iterate, you can always experiment and change along the way to adjust to what your customers are looking forward to and what you think is better now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Find a successful business that's been around for 5 or more years that hasn't adjusted their product. So why the hell should you think that your product's going to be perfect if you can't name an example of someone who's done that? Right?
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Dobson, and welcome to part 2 of my chat with Eric Silverberg. Eric Silverberg is a former university lecturer turned entrepreneur and public speaking coach. If you haven't caught part 1, please check it out. Now let's go to part 2. Are there days or moments where you doubt your ability to lead Speaker Labs forward?
There are zero doubts that I can lead Speaker Labs forward if we stay doing what we're currently doing. There are a lot of doubts about launching our online curriculum and having anyone buy it. There are a lot of doubts about finishing a book. I've never been an author before. So the new projects come with doubts, but continuing doing what we're currently doing doesn't. I think we're at a pretty good place with that.
Did you have this level of doubt that you're talking about with your new projects when you initially started Speaker Labs?
I had a hunch we were going to succeed, even though you hear the stat. I don't know what the latest stats are, but I think it's the last time I heard 80% of businesses fail in their first 3 years or whatever it is. I don't even know if that's based on any real data or if people just say that. So I knew that there was a big chance of failure, but we were willing to fail. Eli and I gave ourselves a 1-year runway. We committed. We are going to go at this for 1 year, and if we fail, then our hunch is that 1 year learning will at least have been worth it.
Yeah.
So we were completely willing to fail, and that made us less scared of failing. When you're okay with the worst case scenario, what other scenario is going to scare you?
What are some of the biggest mistakes you've made either in your career or since you started the business? And I guess what have you sort of taken away from them?
So I would say inaction is a theme. One of the biggest regrets in my career was after my MBA, I was unemployed for a little while, and then I got my first job working in tech, and I hated being unemployed, and I hated that first job. And I was really, really upset about it.
The fact that I disliked my job, the fact that I thought I should be further in my career. Yeah.
I mean, you finish your MBA and you don't plan on the next 2 steps being unemployment and hating your job.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time unhappy as a result. And I wish I just knew that things were going to be okay, and I didn't spend so much time being happy. I wish I spent a little more time not being so stressed out and not caring so much that I didn't love where I was at. Because I think deep down I knew eventually I'm going to be okay. Yeah. But it's really hard to feel that in the moment.
So it sounds like overthinking is really the theme of kind of what you mentioned. Overthinking where you're at, overthinking where you should be, and overthinking.
And not being able to shut off stress. I wish I would. I mean, happiness is the goal, right?
Yeah.
Why was I spending so much time stressed? I wish I was just a little happier during those times that weren't as awesome.
How do you deal with stress, even now that you started Speaker Labs and you've reached the point where you are happier in your career, but you still have stress? How do you deal with that stress?
Getting help. From my co-founder and from other people who we have helping us with other things, whether that's like, a digital marketer, an executive assistant or something like that.
So basically delegation.
Delegation is one thing, which is both awesome and hard. And again, I don't want to get dark in here, but it's back to that theme of nihilism. I mean, all the times in my life so far that I've been really stressed out, let's call it in the business and academic worlds.
Yeah.
Everything has always worked out. So why the hell do I spend time being stressed now? It's going to follow the same pattern and things are going to be okay again, obviously. And realizing that, all you got to do is look around at the condos around here to feel like, oh, I really don't matter. It's abundantly clear looking at the skyline of Toronto every single day that I do not matter. And that's a really nice reminder, because if I don't matter, then neither do my problems.
When you say look at the condos around Toronto and looking at them, it feels like I don't matter. What do you mean by that? Is that just...
It's nice to remember the big picture where like I really care about what I do and I really feel like it's important and I really want it to be important.
Yeah.
But also, it's not. I'm a very small cog in a very, very big wheel, be that the city or the world or whatever. And feeling that small can be depressing. For me, it's actually kind of empowering. It makes me realize that I don't need to spend too much time caring about things that probably don't matter as much as they feel like they do.
Because again, it makes your problems seem smaller than you might think they are.
Right.
Yeah. Now, earlier you mentioned that delegation is hard, which I think is true for most people. What's the hardest thing about delegation to you?
Trusting others to do what you would do in any given situation. I'm not delusional to think that anyone who we put in charge of anything will care about our business as much as we do. The founders care the most. There's all these companies trying to give away a piece of equity or whatever, or stock options, to make employees feel like they have ownership. But no employee feels like they have ownership, like the founder, period. None of those things work. They feel like they're doing a job. They hope that their equity turns into a lot of money. They hope for the upside, but they feel like they're doing a job. And so the hardest part is trusting they'll care about any interaction or anything they do as much as me or Eli would.
And I guess what are some steps that you take when you do delegate to ensure that the person you're putting in charge is likely the best fit in that situation, even though they might not necessarily be you or Eli?
It depends on what you're delegating for. I would say sometimes it's trust in their expertise, and sometimes it's trust in their attitude. Yeah.
You talked about having this desire to be an entrepreneur for many years before you actually did it. So with that being said, do you think people are born with an entrepreneurial mindset, or it's something that's learned through kind of your experiences growing up?
Probably a little bit of both. My hunch is that, this is a little controversial, but not actually controversial. But my hunch is all the people who say they don't want to be entrepreneurs are lying. I think everyone in an ideal world, would you rather work for yourself or not? Would you rather start something successful or not? Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
People have different relationships with fear and with ambition and with a bunch of other stuff that goes into being an entrepreneur, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is just my bias shining through, but I will be clear that it is my bias that I think everyone wants to be, and then some people do and some people don't.
I think definitely everybody thinks of entrepreneurism as being, like you said, freeing, and you can do whatever you want, set your own schedule, get up whenever you want to, and that's the lovely component of it. But then, like you said, there's other components of it that are perhaps overwhelming or very much like you have to always be on, and those are not necessarily discussed in the same light as, well, entrepreneurism is easy because I can set my own schedule and it's so freeing.
Right, yes, exactly. Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Do you think you would have started and taken that leap if you hadn't had a business partner to do so with?
No, actually, that's a good question. I was completely unwilling to do this without a business partner. There was a time where actually Eli was unsure about whether we should partner together, not because he doesn't like me, we're best friends, but because of that very reason that we are best friends. You read these horror stories of friendships and families being broken apart because of business, and he was really concerned that that could happen to us. So there was a time when he was very uncertain about partnering together to do this, and my response to his fear was obviously understanding. It makes a lot of sense, but also, listen, man, if you don't want to do it with me, then I'm going to find someone else because I cannot do this alone.
Right.
I was completely unwilling to do it alone because of the support that I knew I would need, and also because of the push that I knew I would need. Quitting a job and starting a company can turn into sleeping in every day very, very fast. That is a slippery slope when you don't have to be somewhere. And I needed someone to hold me accountable. I just know myself well enough that doing this alone would not have worked because I'm not as good at holding myself accountable as solo founders, I think, are, or at least the successful ones.
So it sounds like basically you wanted someone that could hold you to account if something didn't get done or wasn't being done fast enough.
Or even just showing up.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was
getting out of bed and going.
Right, getting out of bed and going when you could just watch another episode of TV or press snooze 30 more times. That can't happen when we are meeting at 9.
Right.
You know? And so I needed someone to hold me accountable to that, and ideally someone who had both similar skills and different skills to me that I think could really amplify each other and make each other succeed.
For people out there that are thinking of starting a business and are considering starting a business with a family member or a best friend, what's your advice for them in managing that relationship once it also becomes a professional one?
Radical honesty.
In what sense? So
to expect no problems is ridiculous, but handling those problems can be done in silence, building resentment that turns into ugly things down the road, and tackling those problems head on with radical honesty is something that needs to happen if you don't want those problems to build. Eli and I don't just try to do that every day, but we literally put it in our schedules. Every single month we have what we call our intent lunch, where the only goal of the meeting, it has nothing to do with business objectives, it has to do with strengthening our partnership. We talk about all the times that previous month that we had misaligned, or I think you did that for the wrong reasons, or this is sort of what I've been feeling. That is the only goal of the meeting, to be honest with each other and to get clear on what our intents were. Because a lot of the time you're guessing, like, did you do that to hurt me? Did you do that to do this reason? Did you just do that for money when you should have been thinking about our customer? Blah, 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 blah. And to get clear on the intent behind all the actions that happened last month. And being really, really honest about it is something that's important. If you're not honest with your business partner, and you know this, but be really honest about it, to yourself at least. If you're not being honest with each other, you will have the problems build, and you will end up having a falling out. That's my belief.
And now let's shift to the present day. So since you started 3 years ago, how has the Speaker Labs business model changed?
The very first program that we did was 4 modules spread over 4 weeks. So we'll teach you storytelling this week, we'll meet again next week, we'll meet again next week, we'll meet again next week.
So 1 module per week?
Right,
and
over a month. And each month was probably between 2 and 4 hours.
Okay.
That didn't work because of scheduling, and it didn't work because we really wanted to build a program that built on itself.
What does that mean?
If you don't get this first lesson, then every time we reference it in the second lesson, you're lost.
Right.
And so the fact that scheduling was an issue, and the fact that if you missed a week, the whole program's now ruined for you, that changed. So we don't do 4 weeks anymore. We do just a 2-day program. You got to commit to being here for the 2 days, and by the time you're done, you walk out with everything you need. Clear your schedule, or don't come. So the format of the program has changed, and now we're looking at finding other ways to help people, or finding other ways to help people consume help on public speaking. Right now, you got to come to one of our programs. You can fly us out to train your company in another location, which we've done a lot, but you have to attend one of our in-person workshops. So we're talking about writing a book. We're talking about building an online curriculum that will be a little bit different than our current curriculum, sort of building on what you've learned if you've already come to our workshop.
Yeah.
We do condensed versions, like a keynote style thing, where it's just an hour and a half. We'll teach you what we can in an hour and a half. So we've iterated a little bit, I would say, in terms of the format. The other thing that we've done is we used to train some groups of like 30, 40, 100, and that doesn't really work. In order to come, I mean, it certainly works for everyone having a fun time. It doesn't work for public speaking growth, because to really grow, you need to experience being coached, being told, no, you're not doing that because you're scared to do it. And you need a chance at the front of the room. And in a 2-day program, we only have an opportunity to get about 15 people up to the front. So we've changed the group sizes to make sure that it's sort of that optimal, enough people that it feels like public speaking, but not too many people that we can't offer you a chance to actually get up and try it.
Right. And for anybody that goes through your program today or looks at your website and sees the offerings that you have, I would assume they'd be incentivized to just think that's how you started, that's the program we've always offered. But it sounds like throughout the 3 years you've been working on this, you've really just experimented with different ways to present your curriculum, different ways to help people in public speaking.
Yeah.
Would you say it's fair to say that you've experimented to get to where you are today?
Totally. So first of all, if you're going to have a small business, you better be agile. That's the only advantage to being a small business, right? So you better be willing to make some changes. The other thing that just sort of triggered for me is that the thing we've changed the most is our curriculum, the actual things we teach people. Our ideas keep getting better. We keep honing in on the simplest form of them. So that actually is in constant movement. Even today, I mean, we could make a change tomorrow for the next group.
Right.
So that's the thing probably that's changed the most, the actual content of what we teach.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think one of the fears for people thinking of starting their own business is not having the perfect product or the perfect service on day one. But it sounds like really the takeaway is start from somewhere, and you can always iterate, you can always experiment and change along the way to adjust to what your customers are looking forward to and what you think is better now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Find a successful business that's been around for 5 or more years that hasn't adjusted their product. So why the hell should you think that your product's going to be perfect if you can't name an example of someone who's done that? Right?
What's been the biggest adjustment for you going from being an employee to being self-employed?
Because I had my co-founder, the adjustment that I was most scared of didn't happen, which was that accountability piece that we were talking about. The biggest adjustment has been, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it.
Right. Yeah.
It was very easy because, I mean, if I'm being honest, I mean, I loved my other jobs that I had, except for that one blip on the radar that I've referenced.
Yeah.
But if you emailed me after 8 p.m., I was not writing you back until the next morning because I didn't care enough. And now if you get in contact with me, I'm probably going to respond right away, no matter when or where or what I'm doing, because I care so much.
Yeah,
so being always on is something that I think has been an adjustment, but it's not a bad adjustment because I do it because I care to do it.
Right.
So that's been an adjustment. The freedom has been an adjustment.
Of not having set hours,
technically I
report to apart from your business partner.
Right. Technically, I can do whatever I want. That's not really the case when you have a job. You better do the job.
Right.
So that's been another fun adjustment. I don't think there's been any adjustments that have been super horrifying. They've been different, but mostly good.
Sounds like the number one thing that would have been there if you didn't have a business partner would have been accountability.
I would have slept in every day, yeah.
Yeah. And then the requirement to always be on, but now you're enjoying being on more, so it doesn't really feel like a burden.
Sometimes it gets overwhelming. I mean, when we're running a program, we can't also be responding to emails. I'm at the front of the room teaching and hopefully entertaining you. So the other stuff has to wait until after the workday. Whereas when I had jobs, once the workday was done, so was I.
Right. Did you consider doing an accelerator program in the early days of Speaker Labs?
Not for a single second.
There must be a story behind that really quick answer. So what's the real reason?
I wouldn't say there's a story behind it. There's more just an uncertainty of our goals. I mean, do we want to, and we still don't know today, whether we want Speaker Labs to just maintain, make it $1 million or $2 million revenue business and just live off of that and just have the couple of us, our 2 co-founders and a couple of people working with us to support us and just maintain that for the rest of our careers, or do we want to grow it to be a $50 million business? And being uncertain about whether we want to make it a huge business means, why would we have an accelerator to push us to that if we're not even sure we want that? So we were able to get off the ground alone, and without the certainty around our goal, it didn't really make sense to try to have a program help us achieve a goal that we weren't even sure we wanted yet.
And I guess it's also hard if you're not sure what goal you want to achieve. It's also hard to explain to investors or people that are looking to have a part in your business and help you along the way,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain that vision if you're still deciding on it yourself.
Right. I mean, and that's the other thing. Investors, we didn't need any. The investment to build what we build was just our time. So why would we give away equity when we don't even need the money? And why would someone give us the money when they can see that it's not going to be spent on anything? So none of it was really necessary.
What's the most powerful thing that you've learned on your entrepreneurial path that you would tell others that are potentially thinking of starting their own idea?
Find a good